Whistle. I haven't watched it yet. That's what it's called, right? Whistle?
Yep, yeah, Whistle with Daphne Keane, X-23. I thought it was pretty good, and I think you and I think Jen would like it for the most part, with the exception of like the two standout kind of like kill scenes in the movie, which I thought were like far and away some of the goriest things I've seen outside of a Terrifier movie, and some of the gore was like some of the stuff that was happening to these people was comparable to the stuff I'd seen in Terrifier. But it was weird because it was just mostly those two scenes, and then for the rest of the movie was fairly standard, kind
Teen
of
horror,
teen,
yeah.
young adult, supernatural mystery. So in that way, it was a little bit tonally kind of uneven, but overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun watch. I don't think it's necessarily one that you need to run out unless you really want to see some really crazy, wild kill scenes. But that wasn't really the main focus of the movie, so it wasn't just kind of wall-to-wall gore like a Terrifier movie was. So kind of mixed reaction, but overall positive to that.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing what Daphne Keane is doing now. I mean, obviously, it's a lifetime in her time perception, because she was 12 when she did Logan, and then now she's starting to do adult roles, obviously, like reprising X-23 and Deadpool. She was excellent in that HBO miniseries, His Dark Materials. Even that was...
Yeah, that's really the only thing I think I've seen her, and I didn't really watch that. I just saw that she was in it.
It seems like she's had small parts or parts in smaller movies, and then I know she's going to be in Percy Jackson's next season or something like that. I think she's in Doomsday, but isn't everybody?
I just assume everybody's in that, and then we'll wait and see who actually turns up and what kind of part they have in it.
I know, totally. It's just like you hear the Russo brothers talking about it, and like, yeah, don't worry about it. We pulled it off with all these people, and it's going to be surprisingly emotional, and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, I hope so. I will hope so.
I wish I had more of a reason to trust them based off their previous Marvel work, but
everything they've done since then has been
kind of hit or mostly miss. So.
Right.
So I guess we'll see. But I from the little bits and pieces I've heard, and I don't know obviously how much of it is true or not, but I've seen either speculation or leaks or somewhere kind of in between. And kind of seeing where the plot might be going. It seems like it could be interesting. It could be kind of wild, but it's been a while since we've seen anything. There hasn't been a full-on trailer yet for it, so I'm curious when the next kind of marketing push for it is going to be.
We shall see, and it's actually Marvel that brings us back to the interwebs today. It is a Disney Plus Marvel show called Wonder Man. Came out actually probably about a month ago. Actually, maybe more than that. But just between the two of us getting around to watching it. Thought this one might even pass us by as far as covering on an episode. But it just recently, within the last few days or a week, was announced for season 2. And I think the original intention wasn't even for it to necessarily have it, because it was done as a Marvel Spotlight and a mini. It was billed as a miniseries, not as a series. So I was a little surprised. I mean, they definitely left it open to continuing. So, Cam, I will let you start off with this, which I just did read was the 17th MCU television series.
Wow, really? Already?
And I said MCU, so I'm like, well, that always gets... Are the Netflix shows now canon? Did somebody declare them canon? Does it include Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and some of those, those other shows pre-Disney Plus, or is it... I'd be like, wow, I can't believe there's been 17 Disney Plus shows already. But
I have to imagine it's including some of the ones that
the other stuff,
like pre-Disney, like Runaways or something like that.
Right.
Because that seems like a lot. Or just counting since the whole Marvel television MCU push like officially began with WandaVision.
Right, and then now they've backed way off. Thank goodness. But. So what were your initial thoughts?
I liked it. I thought it was enjoyable, entertaining. I feel like this is almost the first time where from beginning to end it was a total like actual formula deviation. Like there's all these times where we going into something and it's like, oh, it seems like they're kind of like it's going to be a little different this time. And you know, with every single project, some of them are a little bit more different, but they usually end up being kind of MCU feeling projects at the end of the day. Not that this one didn't necessarily, but it felt like this was the most different in terms of like low stakes, character focused, not really moving forward the kind of timeline or lore in any significant way. And so in that way, I enjoyed it. And I also have kind of a soft spot for movies or television shows that kind of or point the mirror back at the production process and show a little bit of that kind of culture and lifestyle and kind of work area. So I thought that was an interesting angle to take it. I think that's kind of, wouldn't say it blew me away. You know, I don't really think I'm going to be going back and rewatching it anytime soon, but I am curious to see what season, like I'm interested enough that I'm excited for season 2 and seeing where Simon Williams' character kind of ends up fitting into the MCU and the Avengers and everything.
Yeah, I pretty much have a similar reaction. I overall enjoyed it. It's definitely sort of MCU light, and it is different. It definitely is much more character study and much more about the relationships, and it is definitely, you know, a piece on the movie industry and Hollywood and acting and the acting craft, as well as the whole rigmarole of like being an actor and getting roles and how that all works and how what people's various journeys are getting in and out of the acting industry and having their rises and falls. 8 episodes, I would say, because it was about that, and you know, we'll get into a little bit more about some of the acting stuff that was in there, was fantastic. The relationship between Ben Kingsley and Yahya Abdul-Mateen was excellent, but I would say I felt like the plot itself was sort of, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, to get us to, you know, a few key moments throughout the 8 episodes that were really, you know, the pivotal moments. So I found myself being dragged along a little bit, and I might have even fast forwarded through a couple of scenes where I kind of was like, okay, they're going here to get there, and I know what's going to happen pretty much, so I'm just going to... So I don't even say that so much as like a real criticism, but I was just like, this is a certain type of show and I like what it's trying to do. So I want to, you know, there was a couple of points where I'm just like, okay, just get me to the real meat of this particular episode or scene or whatever. And, but overall, I liked it. I think, you know, to your point about it being not a typical MCU show and how a lot of the MCU shows some of them have started out differently, but you can see that point where they're going to switch into the big climactic, typical Act 3 Marvel, you know, kind of formula. And a lot of them have done that. And this one really didn't. But I could see, it seems like now that we know there is a season 2 that it could be going, it feels like the season 2 would have to be much more of a superhero show.
Right, yeah.
Based on the way... you know, based on the breadcrumbs that they leave you at the end. So overall, I would say enjoyable. If you are interested in the film industry and acting and the craft and all that stuff, you will definitely enjoy it. And if you're a hardcore MCU person, you know, there are some Easter eggs. Obviously, it brings back Ben Kingsley, Trevor Slattery character who was the Mandarin in Iron Man 3 and then comes back in Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. And it has callbacks to that damage control group of people that are kind of like sort of the people that spy on superpowered people that showed up in Ms. Marvel. If you're a hardcore MCU person and if you're a hardcore you know, film buff type person, you'll probably like this. If you're more of a casual Marvel fan, you may find it kind of flat.
Yeah, I think if you go in looking for any sort of, not the, like there are some action moments and some superhero moments, but if you're looking for that you might be a little bit, or you go in expecting that, you might be a little bit disappointed. But I think if you are open to it, you'll end up enjoying it. But I do agree. I think the way that they ended this season leaves it open to a much more traditional, or at least maybe not traditional superhero, but a little bit more of an action sci-fi oriented concept as opposed to a more day-to-day life of an actor kind of concept. Right. But I think it is an interesting place to start and kind of explore certain elements of the MCU that you might not, whether it be the Mandarin, Trevor Slattery, his effect on the public and what he's been up to, and how he would get out of his, predicament that he's in. And this stood out to me is it seems like that they're really kind of laying the groundwork, and both Miss Marvel and this show, which is interesting because that Department of Damage Control showed up in both of those, but it seems to me like they're laying the groundwork for mutants in this show, where you have this kind of powered individual that they're keeping an eye on for reason because they think he's like a liability or dangerous in some way, and there isn't any origin story. There's no kind of indication as to where this power came from. So it seems to me like they're like they said, Kamala Khan was a mutant, and she seems to have these kind of fairly, she has a little bit more of an origin story and a source for her powers, and especially the themes of like that 4th episode of Doorman and him kind of discovering he has this power and using it, and suddenly something goes wrong. I think that's a very kind of easy setup for the kind of mutant fear and conflict that you would expect from the X-Men and mutants in the MCU. So I think that, to me, that seems like that's kind of what they were hinting towards, and I would even go so far as to say that Simon might be a mutant, or they might kind of explore that later on.
Right, because they referred to some fire that he either caused or was part of when he was a kid, and that's when his sort of powers began to manifest themselves. But it was almost like he was fine until it became until he started going through puberty or whatever the case was. And so, there's definitely a lot of groundwork laid for him potentially being a mutant.
I like the back and forth of the original Wonder Man and then kind of them going through the reinterpretation of it. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most in terms of like the acting craft element was I liked the conflict that Simon kept wanting to change his lines, and it was becoming a problem, and it's just interesting to see all of that, and you wonder how much is like accurate to how the MCU kind of operates and how much is fictionalized. And it's interesting, they didn't do too much actual production. There was kind of like that time skip that from the beginning of the production to the premiere. But I did enjoy the kind of slightly different look from an actor angle as opposed to just like a broader production standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, they totally build him as that, like, like he's obviously struggling to start his career, Simon. He's clearly talented, but then he sort of sabotages himself every time he gets a part by like becoming that actor that has way too many suggestions and won't just come in and do his part. And I thought that was interesting. I thought, as far as just acting chops, when Simon and Trevor sat down and performed scenes from each other, like Trevor did a couple of Shakespeare things, and then Simon did some things from classic movies, and they were like, wow, they were like really good. So there's some really good, just pure acting if you want to watch something for that. I thought some of the other things were funny too, like with the Russian or Hungarian director or whatever he was, how he was sort of a riff. I
guess he would have been Baravian because he was the Baravian leader from Superman.
Yeah. But just how he put them through their paces, and it was interesting. Everyone that was auditioning, how you could totally see there was people who had been slogging away trying to become an actor for years, and then there was like the hot guy that just happened to run into so and so, and he said, "I'm awesome," and so here I am now. And it's just in terms of just how funny things happen in Hollywood like that.
I did think overall I found it generally funny. Like I thought a lot of the jokes and kind of humorous situations landed, and
just how everyone reacted to Trevor being the Mandarin, because everyone obviously kind of knows he wasn't really the Mandarin, and he didn't really do that stuff. But they also know that he got in trouble for it. So they're like, dude, Mandarin, record our commercial for us.
Yeah, that was funny. And him ultimately becoming the Mandarin, I thought that was
that was a nice
good
twist.
to save Simon. That was a good twist. And then Simon, I guess, spoiler alert, I feel like we're far enough in now, but
Right.
Simon kind of turning the tables and coming back to rescue him, I thought was interesting. And yeah, they left it open. They could, that was a good kind of ending, but obviously it seems like they have plans for, at the very least, Wonder Man to show up in some capacity down the road. Otherwise, I feel like they would have put more of a cap on it.
Yeah, another theme was, I thought that was interesting too, was that like how the fame changes you. That was part of the whole doorman backstory. Again, for me, like time-wise, I'm like, did you need to devote an entire episode to telling us why they have this doorman clause and they don't want superpowered people in movies? And Josh Gad was funny in his part. But it was interesting how that guy had no interest in Hollywood fame or acting until Josh Gad kind of sucked him in, and then how his personality changed, and even how Simon and Trevor, like Trevor was sort of he knew how to handle it, but you could see Simon start to change once he got the part and they were on set together. He started becoming a little bit too big for his britches, so to speak, or whatever. So a lot of, again, there's so many good nuggets in there just about how the film and television industry works and things like that. So any other thoughts or technical
not
items
really that I can think of. I did think it was interesting that they did the whole doorman episode in black and white. I thought that was kind of an interesting choice to sort of like differentiate it and set it in the past. But I mean, there wasn't anything that stood out as like particularly wowed me, but it was all very solidly done, and obviously the performances were great.
That's number one. Ben Kingsley and Yahya were just very, very good throughout. So I think that's a wrap on Wonder Man. This is one of the things, a little experiment we're doing in trying to, hit things that maybe aren't as big blockbusters, or that, we may have sort of missed the window in terms of when we get around to being able to talk about it, and just doing a little what we're referring to as a quick hitter. We'll see how that goes. And so we may start to do more of these to get out a little bit more content a little bit more frequently. That was great. I am excited for, I don't know what you have next. I know you started Daredevil Born Again season 2.
Yeah, first episode was very good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I may watch that tonight. We'll see what happens. We've got some other things coming up, so we'll be back certainly to see you for Daredevil. I think we did a half and half and split up the season last year. It's one episode shorter. It's only 8, not 9 episodes this season. And, we talked about, when we talked about Daredevil season 1, how the tone changed and the cast really went back and said they were almost doing it kind of in that sort of half comedic, like She-Hulk kind of tone. And they all were like, no, this isn't working. We need to go back to the gritty tone of the original series, and how you could clearly see in some of the episodes, and from the first half to the second half, how that all changed. So I think this season, and you already, I think, kind of mentioned that in your opening comments, that the fact that they didn't give us a double episode premiere means that they seem to be pretty confident in what they have, and that the tone is very sort of uniform and fluid and whatnot. So I'm excited for that.
Definitely. I thought the first episode was very promising, and obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that they're releasing it one episode at a time means that they're confident in it. So far so good. Fingers crossed. We'll see where it goes.
Excellent. All right. Well, that then is a wrap. Thank you for listening. Thank you for finding us wherever you find your podcasts. Please, as always, like, subscribe, click this, that, and the other thing that are out there. All of that helps us to keep this thing going. And we will be back.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next one.